I'm fed up. I'm fed up with the wet tropics. Or rather, it's fed up with me. When I moved here from more temperate climes, it started taking bites out of me, and it's thriving. Well, have you ever known somebody coming to live in a new place, and they don't see the best bits of it? They don't see the beauty. When I first moved to Queensland's wet tropics, all I did was whine like a mosquito, and you'd wonder how I was ever going to settle in. This is my story. How I went from seeing myself as prey to meeting a predator, face to sort of face. Well, not a predator that was actually going to leap out and devour me, but terrifying all the same. But then I realised that there are other ways of feeding without getting bitten. But back to my arrival. I'm whining like a Mozzie in a predator-filled hell. What better way to tell you but in a poem, a sweet, rustic villanelle. Living here at the last house before the riverboat ramp, I pray for a new day to chase away this cacophony bouncing off of me. Curlews lamenting, wild dogs venting, cicadas thrumming, frogs rasping in the plumbing, cricket stridulations, beetle wing vibrations granting, chanting to the fray, in the monotony of Mozzies in the mangrove damp. From huge croc jaws stretching, spring-loaded and bursting to clamp. In my body cafe, I'm a lunch buffet. March flies and ticks are licking their lips. With aching joints and liver, I've got dengue and Ross River. I can't veto the mosquitoes. Their fevers never leave us. And while they suck away, I'm the sucker who's their prey. Living here at the last house before the riverboat ramp. Squadrons of termite-flying ants are attracted to my lamp. They're making a foray in an aerial display, led by their wing commander to the wooden planks of my veranda. With free boards and lodging, they're resistant to dislodging, and they can't be made to pay, however much I spray in the monotony of Mozzies in the mangrove damp. High in the rafters, a python settled into camp, like in a holiday chalet, or picture a valet with a silver tray, except the white-tailed rats chewed right through that. And I've got kidney necrosis from leptospirosis. The gecko males are fighting and the scrubbage mites are biting. Oh, my back beyond my reach clings a rainforest leech, which adds to my dismay, living here at the last house before the riverboat ramp. Every creature to its niche. This redback spider likes my amp. Well, it might sound passé, but she holds a soirée in a pas de deux, sucking up to her, leading dancer. I'm cautious plugging in my beats because he's not all she eats. And while we're talking toxic, cardiac shock sick, there's an adder out the back, a red-bellied black, and my music won't disarm them in no charming cabaret, in the monotony of Mozzies in the mangrove damp. Seductive waters, play the vamp, while I get belly cramp. They've all got eggs to lay, and I don't know why I stay. They're all bleeding, breeding, and I'm doing the feeding. I have to be hardier to combat giardia. I've got the running squits from playing host to their cysts. In a rash of prickly heat, I've got fungus on my tickly feet. From tropical sores sprout mounds of mouldy spores, which will hasten my decay. Living here at the last house before the riverboat ramp, in the monotony of Mozzies in the mangrove damp. It's not easy sometimes settling into a new place. But now I've been here for a while, I'm starting to take a different view of things. With my camera and notebook in hand, I go out looking at my environment, taking photos and writing poems. I'm living it up too. I love tropical fruits and they grow all around me. I don't have much of a backyard, but I decide to compost my fruit scraps under a young mango tree. I've got a few excess poem drafts too, so I shred them and add them to the pile. One day, when I'm tossing out my fruit scraps, I look up to see a giant golden web, and in it, a massive spider with a span leg tip to leg tip of at least 18 centimetres. Okay, so I know it's not going to leap out and eat me, but I'm an arachnophobe and this is really scary. Still, I can't resist picking up my camera. At this distance, I start to make a first connection through my contact lens. Inside, on the web, I look it up, and I find out that her name is Nephal, the giant golden orb-weaving spider. And although I'm still gut-wrenchingly scared, I'm starting to become an arachno-compulsive. I can't stop going down the garden path to see what she's up to, eating her wasps and moths and mantids, her tiny mate crawling over her back, massaging her, binding her with his silk, and taking the opportunity to mate, and just dodging her when she's about to get fed up with him. It's all as juicy as a fruit salad, and I find myself writing her into a poem. Start with the regularity of threads, the mathematical order of angles and intersections, of connections, knots. Do you tie knots? Taking from a tatter of branches anchors that place you just right, held in your centre where I perceive your patient stance. It's not at all patience, but a necessity of holding on until a strike, quantum leaping across your auric strings, blurred in a shudder, reverberating down my gullet, sucking hard into my guts, a creeping, oozing melt of muscle slipping through crawling skin. This revulsion hangs on your chelicera jaw and drips on your pedipalps, slathering through the imagined fangs, sprung traps locked hauling in. My hair, my dress, the mess of you caught up with me, trawling my scalp, stroking my bound thoughts, leaping, flailing from your web struts. Eaten in, spun out again, cycled, recycled, like the kitchen scraps I compost beneath your web, diurnally watching, seeing the reach of your fluid-filled legs, their rill and curl around a leaf you try to eat, in a slatten's golden cage, cracked around one more sterile breach. And your new web, woven further in the foliage, more secure, discreet, bare still for your shrunken self, your abdomen's starved collapse. Start again with the ordering, the concatenation of dysmorphic desires, the remorseless pulse of urges where I feed you moths. Do you eat moths? And mark you my familiar Nephal, lover of spin, with a more secret name. Take you tiny lovers, bind your gaps, clean your hearth, boil you broths, my repugnant, repulsive other life, the unvetted, unpetted, untamed, unclaimed, in your grim thorax face, your snipping pliers, the prey crossed on these wires. Yes, I'm caught all right, but I'm learning from what I observe, like a natural historian, putting it into context through spider books and Nephal research papers that I find on the web. One day, when I go down my garden to take a photo of some insects on my compost heap, I realise that in a way, my fruit scraps are feeding my Nephal. They attract prey in the direction of her web. Fed up. I'm not exactly doing the feeding, but I am putting something into the system. I'm adding a link to her food chain. Well, it's not exactly a chain, is it? It's more of a web. It's a cycle, but not a cycle that just repeats itself. One phase feeds into the next. It's recursion. Recursion is the nesting of the process inside itself, like an egg, inside another egg. I come to the compost, I take photos, I throw scraps, bugs come, feed my Nephal. I come to the compost, take photos, pick fruit, throw scraps, bugs come, feed my Nephal. I eat fruit. I come to the compost, and up and down the garden path by magpie larks that strut on past, and through the feral weed-strewn grass, a plastic bin held in my grasp, to the pile of compost by the fence where once an ancient jackfruit leant. It's here I fertilise the ground with scraps and peels cast on a mound of shredded paper poem drafts, recycled rejects of my craft, to let them moulder in a heap, retain the moisture and to keep the bugs and grubs that decompose the cast-off fruit a poet throws. How then do I now find these sprouts? Fruit salads have come bursting out. It must be one of nature's laws, regrowth of mangoes and pawpaws, lychees and sensuous passion fruit, as tossed out seeds soon start to shoot. But all these grow to normal size. So picture what had met my eyes when I discovered, in surprise, one fruit was set to minimise. A pineapple in perfect shape. No, not plucked early by mistake, but ripe and full, but just minute. Reversion to a midget fruit. Self-referencing and dispersive, my pineapples are recursive. It's my theory this concerns the law on which production turns. Too many fungi, excess worms, must yield diminishing returns. Fruit shrinking to smaller versions, nested in endless incursions. And if I let more leaf tops spill, will they grow yet smaller still? I wonder if it ever stops, recurring fruit from old ones' tops. A natural rule of offspring shrinking, and through the nano boundary slinking, with Fibonacci numbered scales, an endless pattern that prevails. Self-referencing and subversive, my pineapples are recursive. Now too tiny for detection, I have gathered a collection in Daintree ulcer type infection. Fruitlets bypass my detection and start to sprout beneath my nails, invisible in spiky trails, barbed like mini fishing tackle. The rough end of this pineapple gives me such an itch to grapple. Tiny lives get under my skin, a whole world reproduced within, where each cell's pulsing nuclear heart becomes its own recycling plant. And meanings sprout from decaying fruit. So poems, recomposed, take root. Self-referencing and discursive. My pineapples are recursive. Recur, 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 recursive. Sieve, sieve, sieve. So as you can guess, now I'm thriving in the wet tropics. You could even say that I'm a part of it, and it's a part of me. My system is part of the greater system, nested inside it recursively. Talking of recursivity, I might just have time to do that all again. Up and down the... No, I'm out of time. But now the question is over to you. What gets you fed up in your home place? Thank you.